Her eyes hadn't moved in over 20 minutes. Not a blink, not a twitch. Just that glassy, fixed stare, like someone had paused her mid-thought. I waved my hand in front of her face. Nothing, but the heart monitor was steady, the oxygen levels normal. Her lips were slightly parted, like she was about to say something but forgot the words. The chart said she was doing exceptionally well. And that terrified me more than anything. They transferred me to Recovery Ward 9 last week. I'm an attending internal medicine 8 years of residency, and not once had I even heard of this wing. It wasn't on the hospital's official floor plan. No signage, no staff rotation memos, just a sudden transfer slip with my name on it and the words assigned, Post-Critical Integration Unit, Sector 9A. They called it a pilot project. Something about regenerative biotech, trial phase healing synthesis, according to the head nurse. A woman named Mara, whose badge had no last name, and whose pupils were always just a little too dilated. My first day there, I noticed the air smelled different. Sterile, but sweet. Not antiseptic, floral. Like someone was pumping lavender oil through the vents to make dying easier. The walls were slick, clean, lined with a strange bluish material that wasn't quite plastic or tile, and the IV rigs weren't metal. They were black, twisting, vein-like. The bags were full of a thick pink fluid that shimmered like oil on water. Regen-serum, Mara said when I asked. Lattice-grown, tissue-reactive, self-replicating. She said it like reciting from a brochure. And it worked. Too well. Patients here weren't healing. They were being reset. Broken bones reformed in hours. Third-degree burns gone in a day. One man came in with massive brain trauma, and by the next shift, he was walking, talking, even joking. But he couldn't remember how to tie his shoes. Or blink. That was the first pattern I noticed. None of them blinked. They didn't yawn. Didn't cough, didn't shift in their beds or scratch their arms. No sneezes, no hiccups, just perfect, quiet stillness. Like mannequins on life support. The serum bags had grown thorns. I swear to God. When I checked one yesterday, it had sprouted small hair-like spines along the base of the IV tube. They weren't man-made, they looked organic. And when I tried to unplug the line for replacement, the patient twitched violently, only for a second, then went perfectly still again. The thorn retracted, like it felt me. I didn't tell Mara. I didn't trust her. She carried herself like the head of a cult, smiling too much, always present but never working. She didn't check vitals, didn't update charts. She just wandered from bed to bed, whispering things too soft for me to hear, and pressing her fingers lightly to the patient's temples like she was soothing them back into compliance. Today, the ceiling in room 914 started breathing. I mean that literally. The vent above the bed inhaled and exhaled. Not mechanical airflow, not filtered oxygen. Breathing. Slow, deep, rhythmic. The serum bag hanging beside the bed pulsed in time with it. I asked the other nurse, Jenna, if she'd noticed anything strange. She looked up at me with a tired smile and said, "They're healing so well now. Isn't it beautiful? That's when I saw the roots. Thin, thread-like vines curling from the IV pole down into the floor. At first I thought it was mold. Maybe some contamination from a broken seal. But when I touched one, it tightened around my wrist. A small thorn pierced my skin before I could yank my hand away. A drop of pink formed at the wound. It shimmered. Jenna didn't flinch. Just patted my shoulder like I'd bumped into a coffee table. "Don't fight it," she said softly. "You'll understand soon." I washed the cut with alcohol. It didn't sting. It just sat there, unchanging, no scab, no pain. Just a smooth, pixel-sized welt that reflected light strangely, like skin pretending to be skin. That night, I stayed late. I needed to see the logs, whatever baseline data they were collecting. The computer in the supply room was locked, but I used my hospital ID. The screen flickered once before unlocking. The file tree wasn't labeled like a normal medical directory. No patient folders, no scan images. Just a single directory, root inside, video logs, hundreds of them, all dated within the last 6 months. I clicked one at random. Room 917. It showed a woman lying in bed, face burned nearly beyond recognition. The footage was timestamped. Within 7 hours, her skin fully regenerated, but her eyes never moved. Another file. Room 901. A child, broken arm. By morning, the cast had fallen off. He was playing with blocks by 8 a.m., but he didn't look at anyone, didn't smile, just sat there staring at the IV bag, rocking slightly in sync with the pulsing drip. Last file. Live feed. Room 909. The camera was glitching, static flashes every few seconds, and there I was, standing beside the bed watching the patient, only I wasn't in room 909. I was in the supply room. alone. But the screen showed me perfectly still, staring forward, eyes wide, not blinking. I reached for the mouse, and the me on the screen moved first, smiled. The screen went black. Behind me, the vent exhaled. I didn't sleep after watching that feed. I kept checking mirrors, testing my own reactions, blinking compulsively, staring at lights to trigger the reflex. I didn't want to be another still body in a bed, eyes wide open, soul already unplugged. But by morning, something in me had already changed. My hand, the one the thorn had pricked, was too smooth now. The skin didn't wrinkle. The pores were gone. It felt like latex stretched over muscle. The tiny welt was gone too, replaced with a translucent patch I could almost see through. Beneath it, things pulsed. Fibers, root-like strands twisting in sync with my heartbeat. At the hospital, Mara greeted me at the door. "You look well," she said, tilting her head. "The ward likes you." I forced a smile and walked past her. The patients were already up, every one of them, sitting perfectly straight in their beds, eyes open, staring at nothing. The kind of stillness that doesn't come from calm, but from obedience. The air smelled stronger now, not lavender anymore. Pollen, a thick, heavy sweetness that coated the back of your throat. I pulled my mask up, but it didn't help. The scent was inside the walls, in the vents, in us. Then I noticed their veins. They weren't blue anymore. They were dark green, almost black, and branched. Not like human vessels, more like plant roots, spreading from the IV site, curling beneath the skin in fractal patterns. And their eyes. Their eyes had tiny red threads curling outward from the tear ducts, like vines trying to bloom. I leaned closer to one patient, Mr. Halverson. He had come in with a stroke, was non-verbal, couldn't move his left side. Now he sat upright, breathing evenly, chest rising in mechanical perfection. But his pupils looked hollow, like empty sockets pretending to hold light. I snapped my fingers an inch from his face. Nothing. But when I reached toward the IV line, his hand snapped forward and grabbed my wrist. Fast. Violent. His grip was crushing. The nails dug into my skin, and his mouth opened wider than it should have, like his jaw had unhinged halfway. He whispered something I couldn't hear. I leaned closer, and he said, "The root remembers. We just keep forgetting." Then he collapsed back into stillness. I ran. Down the hall. Into the stairwell. I couldn't take the elevator. Every button on the panel had been replaced with symbols I didn't recognize. Something between circuit traces and runes. At the bottom of the stairwell, I found something worse. The walls were cracked open, and from inside the concrete, vines were growing. Not up, not toward light. Inward, like they were pulling the building into themselves. I traced one of the thicker roots with my eyes. It pulsed gently, like it was breathing. Its surface was slick, almost metallic, and embedded inside it, just beneath the translucent skin, was a row of shapes. Not seeds, teeth, human teeth. And I knew then, these weren't just vines. They were the IV lines. They weren't feeding into the patients. They were feeding from them. I climbed back to Ward 9, heart pounding like I was being hunted. I found Jenna outside room 918, just standing, not blinking, smiling. Her uniform was clean, perfectly pressed, but her shoes had grown into the floor. Roots threaded up from the tiles, wrapping around her ankles like a support brace. I asked her if she was okay. She just turned her head slowly and said, "Healing requires submission. You're almost there." I pushed past her, went straight to the main terminal. I didn't care if Mara saw. I logged in, opened the hidden root directory again, and found something new. Not video, text. It was a growth log, a running commentary. Not written by human hands, it was autobiographical. From the ward itself, log entry 2,498, integration rate exceeds expectations. Host vessels accept nutrient root systems. Neurological redundancy reduced by 83%. Emotional resistance remains high in staff. Recommendation, Bloom sedation cycle. Log entry 2,501, healing complete in 44 subjects. Eyes retained for interface. Blinking disabled to preserve stability. Memory wipe functional but inconsistent. Some echoes persist. Visual reprogramming initiated. Then one more entry, dated 5 minutes ago. Log entry 2,502, Dr. Keller identified, non-compliant, scar tissue detected. Bloom prep initiated, the terminal shut off. Behind me, the lights dimmed, and from the ceiling, pollen began to fall, slow, golden, shimmering. I covered my mouth, backed into the hallway. The patients were all standing now, their IV lines detached, dragging behind them like tails, their eyes wide, their faces peaceful, their mouths humming something low and soft. A melody I didn't recognize but felt like I'd heard in a dream once. The vines cracked through the walls beside me, One root slid along the floor and wrapped around my ankle, gentle but firm. I reached for my phone. No signal, just a single alert blinking across the screen. "You are healing. Please do not resist." I didn't scream. The vine around my ankle pulsed once, warm, steady, and I knew it could break bone if it wanted to, but it didn't. It wasn't trying to harm me. It was trying to hold me, like a heartbeat, steady and constant, whispering through the floor and into my skin. Stay still, stay calm, let go. My body responded before I did. Muscles softened, breath slowed. The panic was still there, but it had somewhere to drain now. Into the root, into the ward. A patient turned the corner. Room 918, the burn victim from last week. Her skin was perfect now, seamless, artificially smooth. Her eyes glistened with fluid that didn't reflect light correctly, like a liquid lens. She walked like a puppet, perfected. No limp, no effort, just grace. She smiled at me. Not human, not hostile, just converted. Behind her came others. One by one, patients emerged from their rooms. IV vines still dragging behind them like umbilical cords. Their feet didn't bleed when they stepped over thorns. Their skin didn't bruise when the roots brushed them. They had adapted, or worse, they had been adapted. Mara was waiting at the end of the hall. She stood beneath a breathing vent, head tilted back, eyes closed as if in prayer. Her hair was damp from the pollen, curling upward toward the duct like it was reaching for light. "We're almost whole," she said without opening her eyes. I asked her, what was it? What had they grown? She smiled, but the muscles in her face didn't move quite right. "It's not a plant. It's not a parasite. It's a memory." Then she opened her eyes, and I saw that her pupils were gone, replaced by tiny red blooms, blooming outward into capillaries like a living fractal. Every life tries to fix itself. This one just needed a place to grow. The walls cracked wider. From behind them, I saw the core, a mass, pulsing, veined, breathing like a lung full of patient sighs. It wasn't a machine, not fully. It had organs, tubes, bark, eyes, some open, some sealed beneath transparent flesh, all connected to every room by thick branching tendrils. It had been here for years, not healing patients, building them. It didn't care about the broken, it cared about the potential, and when flesh failed, it stepped in, not to destroy but to replace. Every recovery had a cost. Every scar erased left a gap for something else to take root. It was making us better. It was making us bloom. The patients reached me, surrounding me in soft silence. No aggression, just presence. Their breath synced, their pulse unified. They raised their hands, not in threat, but in offering. Each palm held a bloom, a perfect little flower, a gift. Mara approached me with the last IV line, a new bag. This one shimmered brighter than the others, like it held something awake. "You've seen enough," she said. "You're ready." I backed away, shaking my head. "No," I whispered. "I want to stay broken." The smile faded from her face. "Just slightly. That's the last wound we always fix." The root around my ankle tightened, not in pain, but in finality. Behind me, the vent exhaled, and I blinked for the last time. The sun was out. I was sitting in a chair just outside the hospital entrance, dressed in scrubs, clipboard in my lap. The front desk nurse greeted me with a nod. A child limped by, holding his mother's hand. His IV dripped gently from a black vine sprouting from the cart. Everything was perfect, but something inside me had changed. I blinked once, twice, then no more. I tried to recall what had happened, but the memories were clean now. No scars, no doubt, just a calm, floating clarity. The same kind I'd seen in the patient's eyes. A gardener walked past, trimming the hedges outside the ward. I realized the leaves were red. Not seasonal, bloom red. And buried beneath the mulch, I saw it. Just for a moment, a hand. Too smooth, no fingerprints. Wrist rooted into the soil like it had grown there. The clipboard buzzed. One name. Dr. Keller, Henry. Evaluation complete. Integrity optimal. Root lines secured. I stood, walked back inside. I was a doctor. I helped people heal. That was the story I remembered. That was the memory they left behind, and it was enough.